most common issue I see when a new high worth or high net worth investor comes to Scholar Financial is that it is just so common to see that tax complexity bleeds over to portfolio complexity. And that simply does not have to happen. It makes sense for a high net worth investor to worry about how are they going to maximize the after-tax proceeds from their investment. That means they may have to think about things like foundations and other relatively complex structures to try to reduce and control their taxes. That does not mean that when you go to your portfolio, you need to necessarily have things like commodities, real estate, private equity, because those center around much higher fees. And I think one of the strengths of what we do and one of the strengths of our recommendations is that we tend to recommend low cost, highly efficient in terms of fees portfolios. So no matter if you need to have a complex tax structure, you can have a simplified or relatively simple portfolio allocation. And I think that is one of the primary places that we can add value to our clients.
The issue I see the most from our clients is when can I retire and how much can I spend? We often see people who are looking to retire at early ages, such as age 50 or 55. This means they will need to cover expenses without steady income for the next 35 or 40 years, which could be a very difficult thing to do. Even with substantial wealth, it could be very difficult. They often don't consider, the cost of healthcare, which can add an additional $1,000 a month per person before Medicare. They may not be aware of how taxes may play a big role depending on how they're allocated amongst taxable accounts, pre-tax accounts such as IRAs or Roth IRAs. All these things could lead to additional expenses in retirement, which can cause you to spend down your money a little quicker than you may realize. These are all things that we look at when we're putting together a plan to help you optimize your situation.
The issue I see most frequently with high net worth clients is really legacy planning. They're concerned that they have amassed a certain amount of wealth and they want to make sure that that wealth is more of a benefit to their families and not a hindrance. So that tends to show itself in a few different ways. One is they want to make sure they're prepared. They have goals in place for themselves and for family. What I mean by that is there's this fine line of being able to enjoy the wealth you created and also making sure that family is taken care of. And that is through the estate planning process or just looking at projections of what it'll look like. But it also comes from a point of a little bit more of a worry of what's going to happen when I'm not there to guide my family and they now have all this wealth. So what are the ways for me to instill good financial habits and good values for them so that way that can be carried on truly as a legacy for them. So we're planning for things like gifting strategies and how to start gifting to kids and at what amount and how do you use that as a way to lead to good financial habits, and post-gifting and talking to them about money and helping them get to a better spot than you were in your life, right? Are all big kind of common themes that I regularly see when we start looking at high net worth families and their goals for their finances that go beyond just how do you allocate a portfolio.